All right. Well, good evening again, and welcome back, everybody, to our Porterhouse Thursday evening agent training. We are here in the Upper Marlboro office, 7 until 8:30 p.m. This training is hybrid every Thursday, both online and in the office. So welcome to everybody online, and shout out to all of you ladies in the office. I don't know if we have any gentlemen on the line just yet, but I want to let you know the ladies are dominating, okay? I think Kermon is walking through the door, so at least he's representing for the guys, because the ladies are definitely showing up. The ladies are, they're dominating. So Kermon, you're gonna have to represent for the guys. Text some of your male colleagues and let them know, hey, the ladies are showing us up here. So welcome to you guys this evening. We're excited. We're going to be talking about My House Porter as promised again tonight. We did a full training last Thursday. A lot of great insights. I know a lot of people are excited. I've received quite a number of telephone calls and text messages this week of people who are ready to jump in and start putting properties on My House Porter. So we will do an overview just in case anybody missed it, and a refresher, because it is a new system for you guys. So we want to make sure that you get everything that you need. And it's going to take repetition. So that's what we're going to do. Okay. But before we get started with it, I wanted to just kind of touch base on some of what we learned today from our panel discussion with Susan Webster, who joined us on Porterhouse Realty Talks today. Is there anybody on the line that was able to join us on Realty Talks earlier today, or anybody that's in the office that would like to share any of your key insights or takeaways from Realty Talks today? If so, you can try that mic. If it works, great. If not, come on up here. Okay. Darlene's going to try the mic.
Testing. Testing.
Can you guys hear her?
Testing,
Yes.
testing.
Yes, they can hear
They can hear me.
Yeah.
My takeaway from this afternoon's Realty Talks, what stood out for me, and it's one of the things that I try to do, I do, is vibe, because you want to, it's not just about a it's okay, it's about a transaction, but it's more to the you want to know, their why, just like, why are we in real estate? And my cousin called me recently, and we were talking, she's thinking about selling. And so she was like, well, not selling, I'm sorry, purchasing. And she was like, well, if anybody's going to get the commission, I wanted to give it to you. And so I was telling her, it's not really about, although I'm in this to make money, but it's more education, the relationship. So it's like that vibe piece, I think, is definitely important, that the person or the seller, whoever you're working with, feels that you have their best interest at heart. So that's, to me, if you capture that, then everything else, even if it may have some hiccups, because I experienced that with my recent sellers that were sellers and then purchasers, so I had to, massage the wife, when they had 2 to 3 buyers to pull out of the transaction. So that's where you have to come in and that relationship. And then we were texting outside of real estate. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely, that vibe piece is definitely, I think, crucial.
That was excellent. Anybody else have any key takeaways or insights from our Realty Talks earlier? Can you all hear me now? Okay, can you hear me now? Can you guys hear Aurelia?
No.
That is interesting. I think, you know what, maybe they just want to see your face on the camera. I think that's what's going on, because everyone else has passed the microphone around and you guys can hear them. And as soon as it gets to Aurelia, can you hear me now? Are you holding the button down at all, or is it green?
I hear her, but she's faint.
It's interesting.
It's like it's static when she speaks. So it's like, I don't know if it's a connection thing or.
That makes me wonder if there's some type of interference. I'm going to have to do some more research on these microphones to see if maybe additional wireless services interfere?
It probably is, and it may be if she's in a different area in the room. Try moving.
Paula, that's why we need our IT person here. Come on up, Aurelia, because we don't want to take too much time. Come on, come on.
Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me now? Come on up, Aurelia. Come on up. It's okay.
I think it's the mics because when you, Mrs. Porter, when you speak, I hear you, I can hear you loudly, but it's not clear. Like it's the, whatever the static is, it's like when you speak, it's static.
There's static for me too?
It's because
Yes,
the other
ma'am.
mic is on.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for telling me that. Come on, Aurelia. The main takeaway I got is preparation.
And we still, it sounds
And
just
we
the same.
still
Sound like
can't
you're
hear
at the
you.
back of the room.
Yeah, you don't even sound like you're standing right there.
It's the two mics together. Probably is. You just hold it until it turns red.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's much better. You
Well,
sounded
I
like you
think
were
it's the
distant and you
two-
were standing right there.
I think it's the two mics together. But I just want to say it was a lot that I got from as far as the takeaway. But the main thing is the preparation. You have to be prepared when you're going out there, and especially talking to $1 million listings, because, like you said, most of the time they're knowledgeable of the I guess the market and everything, and you have to be knowledgeable too. And the other thing is to know a little something personable about that, that individual, because like you say, it's about the working relationship, and we're in people's homes, families' homes. And so that was my main takeaway, to be prepared when we go out there.
That is a great takeaway. All right, how's my audio? Paula, do you still hear static or is it clear?
Are
No,
you
it's
good?
perfect.
You're
Perfect.
good.
All right, does anybody else have any key takeaways? Come on.
I didn't want the ladies to get all the glory and everything. So hopefully you guys can see me. Here's the thing that I got, and it really just kind of touched me. It's so simple, but one of the things she said was you just got to do it. You can't be worrying about what may or may not happen. You have nothing now, so you can't do any worse. It can only get better. And if you just get one, or if you do it and you get past the fear or the call reluctance or the situation of whether you're concerned about what people are going to say or what they're going to do. So that really kind of got me, because it's the little simple things that I think that we have to remember. That nothing happens until you get started. You get showing up and getting started is the main thing. And then it can go from there. And the other thing that she said was, I think someone said, was the preparation. You don't just jump in there willy-nilly. Have a plan, have a game plan, know how to call. There's a lot of things that go into calling people. Knowing who you're going to call, and also tracking. One of the things that I didn't do when I was calling, you got to track, who said what. She talked about some people, you have to stroke them, they're not ready yet. And you have to really have to know when to call them back, what to say. They're not ready. A lot of times we'd be waiting for somebody to say, okay, I was just on my knees praying for you to call me because I want to sell my house. And it doesn't work that way. So you got, and because it doesn't. I mean, I know Curtis and myself, we had somebody that I was sitting on the couch, but just got to be prepared. So that's all.
Definitely, you got to be prepared. Does anybody remember what she said about the listing, the pre-listing packet that she sent over that the client was really impressed by? Yeah. What do you guys recall about that? Uh-huh.
She personalized it. She made them a VIP. She put their names on it. She put a picture of their home.
Angela, can you come up here and reiterate that? Because someone may not have been on the call this afternoon, and I want them to know exactly what she was talking about.
Oh, I was just saying she personalized it. She made them feel special, even before she did her presentation. So the pre-listing packet was emailed to them. She personalizing it, calling them their it was a VIP client or VIP, what does she call it? Listing presentation, or listing packet. She put their names on it. She put a picture of their home on it. So they were already feeling warm and welcomed her because, you know, she kind of highlighted them before she even got there to the appointment. So.
One more question for you. Where did
Yes.
she get that listing packet from, that listing presentation?
Okay, so she got it from Brokerment. And another thing, throughout many of the questions that she answered on Realty Talks, she did refer back to Brokerment quite a bit. So I think one of the takeaways I got, same as Kerman, as far as you just need to do it. Sometimes we get a little busy being too prepared. And if we spend too much time getting prepared, we're never going to even get to that first call. And that's what I'm guilty of. But a lot of my takeaway was back to the basics. And I had mentioned this on the call, maybe after the recording went off, but, you know, as new agents, you know, we have to, things are new to us. And, you know, if you don't feel confident, you know, learn what you can, gain as much knowledge as you can, but then rely on your brokerage for your credibility and to be able to move forward with confidence. What I'm learning is that no matter how long you've been in the business, we're all going to experience some things that are new to us. So the same advice we give to like new agents, some of the more, you know, the veterans here, we have to take our own advice. And then when we tackle something new, whether it's short sales, we did that, foreclosures, you know, it's back to the basics, do what's in Brokerment, and then gain whatever knowledge we can. And then like Kerman mentioned, you have to just do it. So.
One more question for you. When you
Yes.
say rely on your brokerage from that perspective, elaborate. What do you mean? by
Okay,
that?
so our brokerage has the experience. There, you know, we can utilize the listings, basically using our brokerage as a team. As an individual, we might not appear very strong, but as a team, whether it's your listing or someone else's listing and those of Jasmine's or whoever else who's under the Porterhouse umbrella, they are what makes us credible because we all are a part of that team. So there's no, you know, pulling the wool over their eyes. We are Porterhouse. So you can move forward with confidence, even if it's on, you know, Aurelia's listing or Kerman's listing. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very well stated. Very well stated. And I just want to reiterate for Susan that that was her very first listing appointment. That was her very first multi-million-dollar listing. That was the very first time that she had to go through this process. So I'm saying that on purpose because relying on the strength of your brokerage in that perspective, one could have very easily have been intimidated, saying, you know, and though there was some of that, you heard her talking about overcoming that and, you know, giving herself a pep talk, and we talked it through and went through all those things. But like Angela said, going back to the basics, utilizing what's already in Brokerment for you guys, because that listing packet that she sent, that's your listing consultation, your listing presentation in Brokerment. Customize that first page. Those first 2 pages, you're going to put your information, you're going to put the client's information, just like she said, but there's nothing, you know, there's nothing lacking in what it is that you guys have as resources. So utilize all of those things and exploit them to your fullest potential. Okay. Anybody else have any other key takeaways? Because I want to make sure, you heard me say last week, no man left behind. We want to make sure that everybody's getting this because we want all of us to progress in this area.
I just have to go back to the part for me doing today. I just have to go look at it.
Mhm. One of the things Curtis used to say he did at nighttime is he would always have, you know, his buyer's guide printed out and beside his bed. And let's see, can I listen to someone call? I think. Okay. Are you guys able to hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am. This is Margaret. Hi, Mrs. Porter.
Hey, Margaret,
Um,
how are you?
Finding you. Hi, everybody.
Doing
That
well.
was my
I
question.
saw
I
your
was
note, so I wanted to make sure y'all could hear me before I continue.
Yes, ma'am. That was a question for when Kerman or I think one of Kerman or Angela was talking, and my question was about the selling. I guess the calling people, and so like I was asking, could I listen in to a call, like to
Oh, yeah.
hear how it's done?
Gotcha. So you want to know if you can listen into a cold call?
Uh-huh.
So
Yes, ma'am.
I think we're going to do one better for you because Susan and I talked today, and we are, like we told you guys on our 2020 kickoff meeting, we're looking for those of you that have certain expertise to step up and be leaders. So we have asked for Susan to come in and be the leader for the cold calling $1 million listings. So you will have
Okay.
an opportunity to come in because we'll do it, you know, in hybrid platforms so that both online and in the office, you guys will be able to have more of that training. Okay. But I don't want you to wait.
Perfect.
I want you to look at the video from today's training, and I want you to look through the scripts that are in your BrokerMet library and your
Okay.
your listing consultation that's in there. Read through that as many times as you can, digest that information because those are your talking points. When Susan was talking
Okay.
about being prepared, that's literally what she was talking about, that listing consultation, your CMA, and then finding out information about that seller. But your foundation is in BrokerMet. So if you literally digest that information, you can pull out talking points, which is what she said, so that when she's making her cold calls, she has bullet points that are already from the listing consultation that's in your BrokerMet library. So start,
Perfect.
get that
Can I
information,
ask?
take it to the next level.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, you had another question?
Is the video on YouTube?
It's not just yet, but it will be.
Okay. Thank you.
You got it. And you know what? We have an IT specialist on the line. I might be looking to, you know, kind of delegate that, the IT specialist, to start uploading those videos for us on a weekly basis. Don't you guys think that our IT specialist in the brokerage, you know, don't you think that it would be wonderful for her to, you know, offer to take that over? Paula, we are putting you on the spot.
Yes.
Herman said you can do it. I believe in you. You're getting a round of applause from your colleagues. Awesome.
Okay.
Good, good, good. Well, I'm excited, guys. Those are some great takeaways. That was our cold calling multi-million-dollar listings. Okay. That is the challenge for this month of February. One of the things that she said, of course, in the conversation, you got to be prepared, but it takes the same dialing those 7 digits to call a multi-million-dollar seller as it does for calling a $500,000 listing. It's the same thing. It's the same type of preparation there. You learning your information and you'll be able to close that sale. If you need support, you reach out to us. Either myself, Mr. Porter, or one of your Realty Pro colleagues will be able to aid you. Okay, guys? Now that is our segue into MyHousePorter, because when you guys are calling those multi-million-dollar listings, you have a product that nobody else has. You have something to offer that nobody else can offer them in our real estate circle here. This is something that really sets you apart because, as you saw, Susan, she was calling the for sale by owners on purpose. You guys can call for sale by owners. You can call your, you know, any type of sales type. We talked about this last week, all of the different opportunities or seller types for MyHousePorter, and it is literally unlimited. So I'm just going to briefly recap, and you guys will help me to fill in the information because I want to kind of move on, but I want to make sure that we fill in all the gaps and give you guys a little bit of, you know, a little bit more depth to what we talked about last week. Okay. So some of those bullet points, as you see in front of me, I want to have somebody that's joining us online go through those bullet points. And those of you that are online, help fill in that information from what you recall from last week. The 0% commission. How would you share that with the seller? And you in the office, you can go ahead and think about it because the question is coming to you next. So you're cold calling a seller and you have a product that you can offer, an option to sell their property with 0% commission. How would you sell that to a seller? How would you phrase it? You can give one sentence. Come on, Talita. We would say, let's try this, see if I pass that to you.
We would tell them that we would get, that they would pay a finder's fee at 3.5%
Instead of,
instead of 6% commission. That's what I did
okay,
for the listing that I got.
excellent,
And he's all for it. That's the way he want to go.
awesome, great job. Anybody else? How would you guys word that? Come on, Angela.
My brain is like, okay, so just in reference to the commission? Okay, so I would ask them, how do you feel about 0% commission? Or I kind of like if you can get them to say yes, that's always a good thing because it usually opens the door invitation for you to keep talking. And that's ultimately what we want to do. So whether you ask them, would you be interested in 0%, knowing more about a 0% commission, us selling your home for 0% commission? Most people are going to say yes, but they're going to ask what's the catch or so forth. But you've already kept them on. Now they're asking you a question, which then it only takes 2 ways to engage. So that's one way, or ask an open-ended question so that they can tell you how they feel. So, how do you feel about me selling your home for a 0% commission? Then you get more of a conversation if you're not just open to the yes. So it might say, well, yeah, but how are you going to do that? Well, I'm glad you asked. And then you can go on to talk more and continue to exchange with them.
Excellent. Does anybody else have any other insight? Is there
I
any?
do, Ms. Porter. This is Margaret.
Go ahead, Mark.
I would, based on the CMA of their current home, I would tell them how much they would save by paying the 3.5% commission. I wouldn't, I would do all of those things. I would like, what do you think about 0% commission? And then of course that should prompt them to ask their question. And then, I'd say, well, with 0% commission, you save this amount of money. Right. And then I would tell them, there's a 3.5%. I would introduce that first. I will deliver the blow first. There's a 3.5 commission, not commission, finder's fee, but with 0% commission, I will take it back to 0%. With 0% commission, this is how much money you save using us. Or
Excellent.
using me or listening with me. Yeah.
Excellent, Margaret. Anybody else?
I think what Margaret said was really good in basically telling people, hey, this is how much you'll save. I guess for me, I probably want to take it up a notch because I'm a over analyzer. So I'd be like, do like Margaret said, look at that CMA, let them know, hey, look, you would usually pay 6% commission. This is how much that would be. Now, all you'd have to pay for this is 0 commission, but a finder's fee of this is how much it would be based on the CMA. What do you think? Or is that a great difference for you or something in that reference? Like, what are your thoughts on that price of that 6% commission instead of, or in comparison to the 3.5% finder's fee?
Excellent. Kermon, you had something you wanted to add to that?
I would also find that.
Come on, they can hear you.
No, I was just saying that I would combine that with, and you can still sell your property. You can still sell your property for the highest and best price. So not only are you paying 0 commission, but you're getting the highest and best price for your property. That's a win-win. And then of course, and then when you explain to them that instead of paying 6%, you're only paying the finder's fee, 3.5%. People can do the numbers, and you can do the numbers for them, but the numbers matter to people when they're selling. How much is going to end up being in my pocket? How much am I going to have to pay out of my pocket? So when you combine both of those things, because sometimes people think, well, if I'm getting this, I must be losing this. So maybe I'm not going to be able to sell my house for, well, how much you're going to take off the sale of my house or whatever. So when you can let people know you're not losing anything, it's a win-win situation. So.
Excellent. That is really good. So that's a perfect segue because we have 4 more points. No lockbox, highest and best price, 14-day sale, 1-day open house. How would you guys share that information? So 30-second elevator speech. I'm a seller and you just reached out to me because I'm a for sale by owner, or I'm an expired, or I'm one of the pool of sellers that's waving my hand saying, hey, I want to sell my home, 30 seconds. How would you grab my attention if you had to just deliver all of this information? I'll give you guys 2 seconds to think about it. Is there anybody on the line that can pull together the bullet points that we have in front of us and deliver it to me in 30 seconds or less?
I don't know about 30 seconds, but I'd try.
Come on, you got this.
All right, so you say the remaining ones, correct?
Bring them all together. You can use them all.
Okay.
And if it goes a little bit over 30 seconds, it's okay. I just want to let everybody break the ice and deliver this information. Go ahead.
Okay, so I will lead with my pitch. Okay, so what do you think about zero? What if I could sell your home? Would you consider selling your home to me with 0% commission, no lockbox, the highest and best price right away? 14, I've been using 14 to 21, 14 to 21 day sale and a 1-day open house. You don't have the traffic. You don't have the nuance of leaving and uprooting your family. You'll get an easy and quick closing, highest and best price. And you know, at the end of your open house day, you're going to have so many offers to choose from, or you get to choose through the highest and best bid.
Excellent. Great job, Margaret. Who's next? Come on, Darlene. That face you made, I think you got this. Come on. All right, take a minute to think about it. Who wants to go next? It's okay, but this is where you want to stumble. You want to get your practice in. You want to get through the, the anxiety. Go ahead and practice it. If nothing else, you have the 5 bullet points in front of you, even if you just read them, they're right there. But just think about it.
I'm trying to remember what it said last week. I like what he said. So he said,
Come on, Darlene.
oh, okay.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think what he said. Okay. I gotta be in front of the camera. Okay. Oh. I know, right? So, okay. I'm getting my alter ego. Okay, so I'm gonna talk to you, come on, because I need to talk to somebody. Okay. Let me give a notes. Do I still need this if I'm up here?
That's the one I had on. So
Oh, okay. So wait a minute, we're in the elevator?
wherever you want to be, it just means a short speech. Wherever you want to be.
Okay. So I have your attention. So how would you like to save $50,000 on the sale of your house? No lockbox, 14 days, highest and best. And what's the other one? And you have 1 day open house where that's where everyone will come, see your house and make offers. And by the end of that day, you'll have an opportunity to choose the highest and best offer. Okay, was that good?
Yeah. You did good. See, just get more comfortable with it. Then you'll be confident. Yeah, but that's fine. I'm seeing some nervous faces. Listen, everybody in the office is looking like, please don't call on me next. Come on. What's that?
Because she made me think about something.
Sure, come on. Come on. Then we need some people from online to go ahead and do a quick run through.
Okay, so I'm not gonna look at you, but I'm gonna do Mrs. Porter. Okay. So, Mrs. Porter, just wanted to ask you a question. I think I know the answer, but I'm gonna ask you anyway. If there was a way that I could sell your home for 0 commission, no lockbox, get you the highest and best price, do it in 14 days, and you only have to be inconvenienced with the open house for 1 day, that would be a good thing, and you'd be in favor of that, wouldn't you?
Excellent. Yeah, I like that. Outstanding. Outstanding. Outstanding.
I like that.
D'Amica's giving you a round of applause. Excellent. There you go.
I think Cameron needs to write that down.
Paula said Kermon should write it down. They're saying the same thing. There you go. But this is very purposeful, guys, because this information is simple. It's only 5 bullet points. It's right in front of you. The matter is just getting comfortable with that information and delivering it in a confident manner. Because listen, if a person wants to sell their home, they need you. They need your expertise and they need your help. And if they can get you as a professional, your expertise and your help, and it'll afford them all of these benefits, these are very seller-friendly benefits. Let's talk about that. We all know about the saving of money with the 0% commission, and that's how Mr. Porter started last week. He said, if I could sell your home for the highest and best price and save you $15,000 to $52,000, 0% commission, so forth and so on, would you be willing to, allow me to help you sell your home? You know what I mean? But that being said, just get confidence with a lot of sellers don't want lockboxes. Some of them do, but every now and again, you're going to come into contact with sellers that say, if you could sell it without a lockbox, I'd appreciate that. They're going to have conversations with you when you talk about the listing process. They're going to say, oh, are you going to be the one showing my property? And you got to have the conversation with them each time. No, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, I'm not going to, be here to show your property. We're going to install a lockbox so that the buyer's agents will be able to show their clients the property. So these are, I don't want to say inconveniences, but these are situations that the sellers endure, but don't necessarily appreciate. You know what I mean? So the fact that you come in and you take those things away, your product is way better than the competitors. Okay. The highest and best price. You're getting true bids on a platform that allow for them to see what those, the prices are that are coming in. Because a buyer may be willing to go on that platform and offer their bid that may not have submitted an offer, you know what I mean? Because they don't know if the seller is willing to accept that. But this breaks down those barriers of uncertainty, and it allows for buyers to be competitive, and it allows for sellers to see what their highest and best value is. And then that 14-day, Aurelia, you have a question?
I do have a question. So are the buyer agents allowed to schedule a showing before the open house, or?
No. So Aurelia asked if buyers agents will be able to schedule showings before the open house, and the answer to that is no, because when it's in coming soon, nobody can tour the property, not until it's active, and it becomes active for that 1-day open house. And that 1-day open house, that's where your frenzy comes in, because you may have a 4 or 6 hour window or whatever that looks like for you, so that everybody comes out on that 1 day to tour the property. Okay.
What happens after that? Because that's not your 14 days
right
of action. So
that will be that's a really good question. Aurelia said, what happens on that day of the open house? So the day of the open house is the day of your start. So on My House Porter, you guys are going to see there's a date for the starting bid, and there's a date for the deadline. The final bids are due by a certain date. So the date of the open house, that's when everything starts, the bid will start. But then you can give a 48 to 72 hour period to allow people to actually get their bids in, right? So then you have a deadline for all of your bids. You start on the day of your open house, maybe that's a Saturday, and then you go until maybe Monday evening, or you go until Tuesday, and people are able to bid on the property between that time, and the deadline might be 6 p.m. on Tuesday. So
that's why you said that when you do that's why you want to make sure you have had your pictures.
yes. Yep, Darlene has said that's why we want to make sure we have all of our photos done in the coming soon stage so that everybody can see it. All right, D'Amica, I see your message. You said you're ready. Go ahead and take us away.
Okay. So I'm going to speak to you because you are the seller. So Mrs. Porter, let me ask you a question. Do you like clutter?
No, I don't like clutter.
So you don't like clutter. That's great to hear. Let me help you clear some of that mind clutter that you may have when it comes to selling your home, and some of that activity clutter by 0% commission, highest and best price for your home within 14 to 21 days. That 1-day open house with no lockbox required, that 1-day open house that you'll have, that definitely cuts down on the consistent traffic that you may have coming in and out of your beautiful home that you have right here. So what do you think about that?
I think I'm really impressed. I would want to know how you can do that.
Great. Let me get you over to my broker.
Excellent.
There you go. That's great.
Awesome. That was great. That was wonderful, Damika. So before I continue to the other talking points, you guys did such a great job. So kudos to all of you because you were nervous and you nailed it. You guys nailed it. Does anybody else want to take a stab at it?
Come on, Paul.
Okay, so then whoever didn't get to do it tonight, I'll make sure I call on you the next time we're together, okay? So I'll be calling on your name, so just be ready. All right, so here are those numbers that we were talking about. Sellers save on average in our area $15,000 to $52,000 in commission. That is a big deal.
Yeah.
So if you're, because listen, at the end of the day, the seller wants to know how quickly you can sell my home, for how much, and with the least amount of hassle. So that's literally what you're selling them. You're selling them your professional expertise to sell their property for the most amount of money and the least amount of time with the least amount of hassle. So I like the way that Damika spent it with clearing some of that mind clutter or things that may be bogging them down, worried about the sales process. So that was a cool spin on that. So that is, you know, one of your talking points. And if for the finder's fee, I would actually leave that for last, right? So leave that for last. Once you get through your talking points, they're going to ask you how, and then you're going to tell them how, right? Lead with all of your big ticket bullet points up front, because then you're going to get buy-in to have a further conversation. And once you've gotten their attention, they want to hear from you. They're going to want to know, Rhonda, how can you do that? You know what I mean? I'm glad you asked. I can tell you how, okay? And then even one of the ways that you phrase it, if I'm able to do all of this for you, would you be willing to pay me a nominal 3.5% finder's fee? If I could do all of this for you, would you be willing to pay me a nominal 3.5% finder's fee? They're going to be happy to. And just be aware that even if you go after your for sale by owners or any of your seller types, they are already thinking 6% commission. If you have those that are trying to negotiate, they're thinking 5.5% commission, or they're thinking, you know, I'm not going any more lower than, you know, I'm not going any higher than 5% commission. And those are few and far in between in our area. But I'm saying that because the product that you offer blows that out of the water.
What if someone tries to negotiate even that?
No, ma'am.
No.
No.
And I honestly, I can't even imagine.
So here's the thing. So Aurelia asked if somebody tried to negotiate you down from 3.5%. And here's what I say to that. You have got to be confident in yourself as a professional, right? When you go to a doctor and they have to perform a specialized procedure on you, you're not going to, first of all, if you have a discount doctor and you need a specialized procedure, you're probably not going to want to go to them. Right? So if you have a specialized procedure that is going to be either giving you protecting or, you know, devising assets into the hundreds of thousands or millions, you're going to want to know that the person is competent, they're confident, and they are going to stand for their own commission. So I promise you guys, you're going to get a much further way when you stand for your commission than if you just allow people to bend you any type of way, because I'm going to tell you, they will not respect you as much, nearly as much as the expert and the professional if they can push you around about your commission. They will respect you as a professional when they know, you know what, she knows her stuff, he knows his stuff, and he or she knows their worth. So I'm willing to have that level of confidence in them because they're confident in themselves. Another thing that goes with that is if you are willing to take such a low percent commission on your own, then how do I know, or why in the world would I think that you're going to work to get me the highest and best price for my property, and you're not willing to fight for yourself to get the highest and best value, right? Because at the end of the day, people pay for what they want and what they need, and it's all about them seeing that value. So once they see the value in you, they're going to be willing to pay it, right? I can see if we were talking about a 10% commission, which I know people who do a 10% commission in some markets. You know what I mean? A 7% commission, that's something that we negotiate for some of our listings, right? But if we're talking about a 3.5% and they're trying to negotiate down from there, I would not. I just wouldn't do it. Yeah. I really wouldn't do it, because you want to make sure that you're working with a serious seller. You want to make sure that it's worth your time. Just like buyers, when they're purchasing a house, they have to have some skin in the game. They have to have a down payment. Except for certain programs, 99% of the time, they have to have a down payment. They have to have skin in the game. So you know that that buyer is serious and they're not just taking you for a ride.
Now, how do you explain the piece where you're actually taking the value of their property down like 10-15%,
Mhm.
so that you can get the people that come, the buyers, interested?
That is an excellent question. Aurelia asks, how do we talk them through our pricing strategy in order to trigger a bidding war? All right. And let me go ahead to that slide. Here are some of the properties that we went through last week that were on MyHousePorter, and that was the outcome of the contracts we got from them. Here's another one, and I'm just briefly mentioning them as I go through the slides because I'm going to get to your talking point. If there's anybody who was not with us last week, we just shared several of the success stories for properties who were on the platform MyHousePorter. And the first one that we showed here, this one had over 31 bids. The starting price or the starting bid was 800,000. It got all the way up to 882,000 on the platform with 31 bids. And it ended up going under contract. As well, first of all, let me point this out. On the left, as you can see, we started receiving offers in both Brokerment, and on the right, you see offers for MyHousePorter. So MyHousePorter, it went all the way up to 882,000. And as you can see in Brokerment, people were trying to avoid the competition of the auction. So they were offering offers of well over what the highest bid was. Okay, you see the highest bid was 882, but then you see offers in here of 980, 1 million, 950, 1.2 million. So that's how that panned out. Okay. And then we ended up going under contract for 1.2 million. Another property was listed on here. You see somebody before the auction hadn't even hit yet, but you see somebody sending me messages in the portal. Hey, our highest and best is 777,077 cents. Would the seller be willing to consider that? And your answer is always the seller will consider any offer, and the seller has the right to accept any offer that they choose to. If the buyer's offer is significant enough to cause the seller to cancel the auction, then that's the seller's prerogative. So that's a part of your disclosure, so they know that as well.
So we should be sharing these success stories in our presentation.
Yes, yes. So this is actually a part of your listing presentation. I'm just adding more to it. So the slides that I'm going through, this is your yeah. So it's been added to it. I just got to share it out with everybody. Yep. So this is so that you have the talking points. Okay, that's another one. Another property, same story there. Went under contract for 800,000. Didn't even make it to the auction. So you see that? Yes, Darlene, you had a question?
Yeah. And so my question is, so with it not going to the auction, what was the commission? What was?
She asked an excellent question. What was the commission if it didn't go to the auction? And that is a very good question, because it's actually not. It's very simple. Because the listing process for MyHousePorter is 99% the same. All of your listing documents are the same. You take your 6% listing the same way you would in any instance. You add the language that states that the property will be added to MyHousePorter. If sold on MyHousePorter, then there will only be a 3.5% finder's fee. You put your brokerage fee, and there will be a 3.5% buyer premium charged to the buyer. That is the language that you're going to put in that other section of your listing documents. And you only add that one-page addendum, which is right in Brokerment. That is your terms for your MyHousePorter auction. Okay. Getting some static. Does somebody want to ask, or let me just go ahead and mute you? When you guys are ready to ask a question or jump in, go ahead and unmute yourselves. Otherwise, I'll leave it muted so we won't have any static there.
And so basically the sellers are intrigued and automatically buy MyHousePorter. And then once those offers start coming in, it's like they don't want to wait to the auction. They're ready to jump on the offers that are coming through.
That's what we've been seeing. So Darlene is asking or stating that the sellers have been intrigued by the MyHousePorter process. And when offers start coming in, that the sellers are jumping on them. So that is the prerogative that the seller holds, right? The seller remains in the driver's seat. And that's one of your talking points that you want to have in your belt too. Because for the seller, if they ask you questions and they say, well, what if I don't want to? Or what if this, or what if that? Mr. or Mrs. Seller, you remain in the driver's seat. What you want to do is what we do. If you desire to accept an offer before or during or whatever that case looks like, that is something that we can do. You,
Of how high that may, maybe something above that, but if you want to do something
yes.
lower, that's
Yep.
your choice.
So no matter how high or low the offer may be, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, you get to choose that offer. Okay. So I wanted to point out something because as you, not sure if you guys can see it, it's kind of small, but it's right up under my cursor where it has starting bid. Aurelia asked a question about our pricing strategy. That pricing strategy, when we do our comparative market analysis, we are gonna strategically have our starting bid to be 10% below market value. So you take a look at the market and see the time frame for what has sold over there and what it was priced for and all those things. 10 to 15%, no lower than that, but 10 to 15% below that market value is what your starting bid is gonna be, okay? Your starting bid is where you're gonna take your opening bid, right? On your listing agreement, you have the seller's what we call a minimum reserves. So you can start at 750 and the seller has already said, I'm not gonna sell it for anything less than, 760 or 775 or, what the numbers would be based on 10%. So if they may say, I wanna get 800,000 for it. You've priced it strategically, you're starting it at $750,000. So that is not the intended price for it to sell for. That is just the opening bid to trigger competition. Does that make sense for everybody?
So when you say the buyer, the seller's reserve, do you actually put that in the language or?
Yes, you are. So that's a good question. And let me show you where that goes. So I'm going to stop there for a moment. Actually, I'm going to go to a slightly different screen. So Aurelia asked about the seller's reserve, right? So you do not disclose what that seller's reserve is. That is confidential. That's between the brokerage and the seller. So you don't tell other people. You put what the minimum bid is. That's just like disclosing your buyer's highest and best. You don't disclose that. You don't disclose what the seller's going to take, but you know it. So you put the opening or the starting bid into Bright. So here is an example of one that was in Bright. This is one that has closed. And we're going to go down to the auction terms here. Scroll on down. So you see where it says auction? Those are the auction terms, okay? And you see that published minimum bid. That published minimum bid, that's where they start, okay? Where we ended up was 800, and that's what the seller wanted for the property, all right? So you don't disclose it.
You still gonna go under that.
Under auction. So when you guys create your listing in Bright, you know how you create it as a standard listing? You're simply going to choose auction. And the only thing that's going to vary is this tiny little section right here. It just adds this extra layer or this tiny little section so that you can put your auction details in. And you see the information that is asking for. So the auction date. So when does it start and when does it end? The published minimum bid, the auction time, the preview date so they can actually go out and preview the property. And that's your open house date. Okay, the registration deadline. They got to register by the actual auction deadline. So 3 hours before the auction ends, they need to be registered on there. And this is very important, that auction type subject to seller confirmation. Subject to seller confirmation. Can anybody think of why the final bid needs to be subject to the seller's confirmation?
You say why did it?
Yeah, why would we want to make the final bid subject to the seller's confirmation or the seller's approval?
Because if they do have that premium price, but they're saying they're willing to not negotiate under that now.
Yes, so Aurelia is saying you want to make sure that that high bid meets the seller's minimum reserves. There you go, because only we know that, and that's spot on. That's exactly why, say by chance we had this property, the one that had the high bid of 882,000, right? We knew that the seller wasn't going to take 882,000. He wasn't going to take anything under $1 million for the property, right? We didn't disclose that. That high bid in MyHousePorter is not the automatic winner. The seller has to approve it and the seller has to confirm it. Okay, So the seller remains in the driver's seat with that. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Because we have that certain time.
Yes.
Okay, so you get new bids in.
You have some good questions. I'm gonna pass this microphone back on over to you because Aurelia's making me work for it. I want to make sure they can hear you.
Okay, you have that certain time frame that you're working from. So if these bids are coming in and you already know that this seller has given you the disclosure as to what that bid is going to be, what if you don't meet that?
That is a very good question. If you don't meet that, then that means the property is overpriced.
Okay.
Okay, because the market has a voice, right? One of the things that's in our buyer seller guide is that it doesn't necessarily matter what the seller wants to get for the property. It matters what the market value, what the market is saying, because the value of the property is what buyers are willing to pay in this market for that particular property, right? Now, I know that all too well because just like Susan shared on the call today, when she got that listing for $1.7 million, they were resolute. They were not willing to yield or bend, and they wanted $1.7 million because they thought that that's what their home was worth, right? She took the listing and she said, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is what my market analysis is showing. It's showing that it's more around this price right here. You know, I'm willing to go with your price, provided that you make an agreement with me after a week, because based on what we're seeing, properties in this area that are priced appropriately, they're going under contract in a week. If after a week, we haven't gotten offers on your property, then you come down to my price, right? So there took a couple of conversations in between, and I had to get on the phone with the sellers and go over the market analysis and show them the difference. One of the properties, you know, had, I think, 10 acres. Theirs may have had 3 acres. Another property had 10 acres. Their property had, I think they may have had a 2 or 3 car garage, whereas the other property may have had like 6 car garage or something like that. So the square footage was the same. The specs were very similar, but there were certain details that they wouldn't know to pay attention to that gave one home a higher valuation than the other home, right? So it's all about doing that preparation and doing that market analysis, because we're not pulling numbers out the air. We're not pulling days on the market out the air. We are doing our research and we're doing a market analysis. We're looking at 3 to 5 homes. I push you to get 5. If you can get 5, 7, that's great. But I want to make sure that we have a pool of listings that we can informatively advise our sellers, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. This one, you know, like your home. This one is like your home. These are the features and amenities they have, and this is what they sold for. So this is what your market is saying. The market has a voice, and we got to listen to the voice of the market. So if you got to sell the seller on it, that's a part of your process. We are salespersons. You are a salesperson. So you're selling yourself. You're selling the seller, not just on using you, but you may have to sell them on every step throughout the process, because there are going to be some things that they're amenable to. Then there's some things they have to be sold on in order for you to get them to the end of the process that they've hired you to get them to. You might have to sell them on listening. There you go. That's a good strategy too. Listen, even if you have to do showings for a seller, that's one of the strategies that I've used for years. If you have a seller that has unreasonable expectations, you set up some showings for like-kind properties in the price point that they would like to price their property at, and you show them what those homes have. Now on HomeSnap is going to give them all the photos. So of course you're going to send that to them and you're going to go over those photos with them, because you want the seller to be able to see how their property stacks up. Because just because it's the property next door doesn't mean that your property is like the property next door at all. So you want to make sure that you show them pictures, or if the pictures aren't effective, even on your listing presentation, when you're doing your listing consultation with them, you have up that market analysis, and you can even go to Bright. So you go to Bright, and where you've prepared that market analysis on Bright MLS, they have hyperlinks in that, right? So you have your market analysis, you click on the hyperlink so that if you're doing your presentation for them, you can actually show them those properties. You can scroll through the photos, you can look at the video, so that they can't say, oh, Darlene, my property should be able to sell for 1.3 million. My neighbor next door, you know, theirs just sold for 1.3 million. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, your neighbor has a Olympic-sized swimming pool in the backyard. They have 5 additional acres. They have, you know, all the bells and whistles imaginable in their property. So yes, your property is similar, but it's not the same. Okay. So it's all in the pricing. I said all that to say it's all in the pricing. Okay. So I want you guys to be comfortable with that because you've done your market analysis and then you've taken your starting bid, you've taken it to 10% below the market. So be confident. Buyers are willing to pay market value for properties. So what do you think they're willing to offer when you see a property that they want and is priced 10% below the market? What do you do when you see a sale? I wanted to buy that anyway, and now it's on sale. What do you want to do? You're going to make an offer. You're going to compete. Okay. So excellent question. Excellent question. So here's another one. And I wanted us to actually walk through one together, but we've had so many amazing questions and feedback and all that good stuff together tonight. Not sure if we'll be able to make it through this entire process, but here's one that's about to go up on My House Porter. And this is the process for actually creating one. Let me go ahead and hold on one second. I'm gonna put this back on here because I won't pass it for a moment so you guys can see what it looks like to create it. So the beginning process is exactly the same. You get your same listing documents, you add your language and your one-page addendum. After you've done that, you go to Bright MLS and you put that property in Bright MLS. Once it's been created in Bright MLS as that coming soon listing, you're going to send that link to that listing to the office, to myself, to Shay. You can text it to us, you can email it to us and let us know what your starting bid date is, your starting bid price, the date, the opening date, and the closing date for your auction, because that's the information that we're going to need in order to put it up on My House Porter for you. Okay. So then what we do is we're going to come, I'm going to grab this and I will begin the process now so you guys can see it. We're going to come to My House Porter and I'm on step 1 of 6. In my account, I simply went to create listing. So after it goes to the MLS, yes.
And you just copied the number MLS.
Yep, that's exactly what I did. I just copied the MLS ID from it. So I'm going right here. Yes, sure. Hold on. As long as you ask the question into the mic. Come on, Angela.
I was just gonna say, after you put it in the MLS, it's not incoming, is it incoming soon status at that point? Or do you have it kind of like saved, but not in, it is actually incoming soon status? Soon as you put it in coming soon, then within 24 hours, I say, we'd have the link necessary to,
So in
how
MLS,
quickly will we have that link?
So within 72 hours. So MLS, in order for you to have that MLS ID, you gotta submit it. So it has to be
Right,
submitted
gotcha.
to MLS. So
Okay.
we need the actual link. So you're gonna have to submit it so that we can get a live
Okay.
link.
Okay.
That was a great question. Great question. All right, so we're going to be giving you guys these privileges for My House Porter. For now, it's just Mr. Porter and I, but in the months to come, hopefully by next month, everybody will be able to have your own access once you get a listing, right? So when you have a listing and you want to put it on there, then you will be given access so that you can do it yourself. And if you want to do them both at the same time, you'll be able to activate both simultaneously. Okay, so this one, the property address, I do a lot of copying and pasting, and I don't want to slow us down too much, but as you guys can see, if I went here and I simply copied, go back and paste that address, system wants to verify. Okay, agency, Porter House, contact type, broker, auctioneer, and you guys would be agent auctioneer. Okay, and this is attempting to verify this on the map. Not found. Oh, hopefully, because you know what? It may be because I'm going back and forth between the browsers that this one kind of got lost in the matrix. I may have to go back in. Does anybody have any questions while I log back into that system? I have a buyer question. And they're looking at this. So they're looking at the that they want to do. Can you find So Aurelia is asking, and I should have had you put on this mic, but I was multitasking, so I missed it there. She was banking on that. See, there you go. So Aurelia is asking if buyers agents have questions about this MyHousePorter process. So we can walk through what the buyer's agent's process is, because their process is very simple. They simply register themselves as the agent. So we can see what that looks like. They register as the agent and then they submit a bid on the platform, because their offer is not due just yet. It's just a bid. So the bid is simply the numbers on the platform. Once the bid is accepted, that's when they do the process of preparing the full offer. So their job is very easy. Does anybody have any questions about that? All right. So here's our selling. This is where I come to create a new listing on here. And this is where I would put all the property information. And I am not going to walk through this process because I don't want us all to fall asleep. But I want to introduce you guys to what the platform looks like. Okay. So as you can see, all the information that's going to be required and the property address, you're going to put that there. It'll pull it up on the map for you. So you have a map view. The property info is what's going to be required next. Property details, then the auction details, the pictures, and then here's a place where you can actually put files and comps. So if you have a comparative market analysis and you're looking to sell your property, you simply put your comparative market analysis on here also, so they see how this one stacks up, right? And that's going to help to sell your property, because if they see this property is coming on the market at 800,000 and the other comps in that neighborhood sold at 880,000, they're going to say, listen, I've got a true gem here. I'm willing to offer up and above and over that price. Okay. So what the system does is the system allows them to have a minimum or their introductory bidding price, and then an escalation, right? You guys are familiar with the escalation clauses in offers, right? It's where you start and where you're willing to go to. So they may put in that they're willing to start at 800 and they're willing to go up to 900 in increments of 1,500, right? So the system, once they plug that information in, the system is going to start competing for them. And anytime, so they don't have to. They have access and they get notifications, but they don't even have to keep coming back to bid that way. They set their opening bid price and they set their escalation clause, and the system is going to automatically do it. Anytime a competing bid is generated in there that goes above theirs, it's going to allow them to stay competitive. So that's one of the things that is a tremendous benefit for buyers in that regard.
So they won't have to keep going in.
Yep, they don't have to keep going in. They set their highest price that they're willing to pay for the property. Yep. And then also in the system, if they've gotten to their highest price and somebody has outbid them, the system is going to notify them, because they might want to come back and outbid that person. So the system is very buyer friendly. So it's really going to allow for them to compete on that platform so that we're able to get the seller the highest and best. So those are your talking points. When we're talking about the highest and best, those are some of the things that you want to make sure that you convey to your seller. Okay. Another thing you want to make sure that you convey to your seller, sellers are going to ask, well, what about the buyers? Is that 3.5% going to be some type of hindrance to the buyer? That could be a question that you get. And the answer to that is 3.5% is going to be a gift to the buyer, in that, number one, we've priced the property 10% below the market. Number two, that 3.5% is not additional closing costs out of their pocket. It's just the 3.5% is added onto their highest bid, and that becomes the purchase price, right? So say by chance you have, 800,000 and then you put another 3.5% on there. So now you have 826 or 27,000 or somewhere around there. That's the contract price, right? As long as your comps in your market are showing that that price is within the market value for the property, you're good. The buyer's good. No issues, no worries. Okay. So they actually get to finance that because that's their final contract price. That is the actual contract price.
So it's really not even that money they're bringing, just what they want to finance.
Yes, the buyers are not bringing an extra 3.5%. The 3.5% is added to their high bid. The two numbers equal the contract price.
And the buyers are understanding.
Hold on, we got three good questions okay, come on.
So basically, as long as, like you said, as far as the appraised value
Mhm.
come in because they're doing this to a lender.
Mhm.
The lender, of course, wants to make sure it's under the appraised value. So as long as it's not outside of that, the lender's going to lend them the money.
Yes.
Okay.
So as long as it's not outside of the appraised value, the lender's gonna lend them the money. Yes,
So the buyer shouldn't care one way or the other because it's.
that's right.
So if I'm representing my buyer on Darlene's My House Porter list,
Mhm.
then if my buyer has a pre-approved letter for up to 800,000,
Mhm.
then because I've read the terms,
Mhm.
I already know that their bid can't be up to 800,000 because I have to factor in 3.5% fire.
That's right. Angela has asked if you're working with the buyer and the buyer's pre-approval is up to 800,000, then you need to factor in the 3.5% so that their high bid allows for the addition to be added there. Okay. Yes, that's the appraisal part. You're going to find comps within that value because remember, we're not starting at the top of the market, right? Your market value is in between. And if I went to, let me see, I don't have it prepped, so I don't want to take you guys through too many pages to get to it. But just as a talking point, your market value is in between. Your market value is always going to have a range. It's going to be your low, median, and high. No matter what property you're doing a comparative market analysis for, you're always going to see that price range in there, right? So it's going to let you know what the highest price point is. And that is not where you want to price it in order to get multiple overpriced offers, right? So in terms of this pricing strategy is going to get you your competitive offers, but it's also going to give the seller the highest and best value because competition is what drives the price up. So when you have people competing in that way, that's how the seller is going to get back to what they wanted in the first place.
And that price only lies between median and low.
Yes, so 10%. So with your, Darlene asked if that price lies between the median and the low. If you were doing a standard listing, I would say yes for the median and the low. But with My House Porter, the pricing strategy, you're going to look at that average price point in that community and you're going to go 10% below that. Okay. So 10 to 15% below that. Yes. And that's where your bidding war and your frenzy are going to come in.
So I would imagine that even if they go over what they have been approved for, they can always come with the extra money out there on process.
Carmon asked if they went over what their pre-approval for, if they can come with the extra money out of pocket, if they really want that house. And the answer to that is yes. All right, online crew, everybody in the office, they're doing a round table in here asking all these good questions. I know y'all have questions. Come on, Angela. Angela has her hand up.
So we talked about this before, but I think it's clarity. As far as, are there appraisal or financing contingencies on My House Porter?
So there are no contingencies allowed. They can get an appraisal and they can get financing. Okay. But what the platform says is the sale is not subject to those things. So essentially, what is that saying? You're not going to waste my seller's time, right? If you've committed to purchasing the property, you commit your earnest money deposit and you ask us to take it off the market and we got 31 other buyers, then you need to do what you need to do to get through that loan process because you can get those things done, but there's no contingency that would protect your earnest money deposit. That is what the disclosure says on My House Porter. So that's very seller friendly. Yes. Yep. That's another sales pitch, as Aurelia said. So we are actually going to increase the earnest money deposit because we had a very conservative one of 1% on there. Very, very, very conservative, that 1% earnest money deposit. Yep. Now, I want to make sure that something is clear because there are terms and conditions for My House Porter that are outlined in that addendum that goes along with our document. That is per the platform. The end all be all is going to be the actual contract that's ratified between the buyer and the seller. So you want to make sure that those terms are agreed upon by the buyer in advance. And when that buyer submits that offer, we have seen that some buyers have asked, oh, okay, well, can I do this? Or can we split the transfer and recordation 50-50? Because one of the terms on My House Porter says that the buyer pays all the transfer and the recordation tax. It is seller heavy on the seller side. But when you get that contract, the buyer will likely put 50-50 split, and that is fine as long as the seller's fine with it. So it doesn't have to be rigid and stay that way. These are just the introductory terms that you want to make sure the buyer's prepared to do those things. But if the seller is willing to allow some negotiation on some aspects, then it's subject to that residential contract of sale. Yes, yes. Come on, Angela, you have a question. Uh-huh. 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 Okay, so I'm gonna pass this mic so they can hear y'all.
There are some stipulations with VA loans where they have to have the contingency on finance. So how do you get around that?
Per the contract. That's actually an easy one to overcome, because if the seller accepts the contract with the VA loan, then that's a part of the contract. Yep. So it's all subject to what the buyer and the seller agree to in their contract. Angela, what questions did you have? And you know what, forgive me, guys, I meant to reiterate, I didn't get the microphone to Aurelia in time enough. I thought her question was going to be more robust, so I was going to pass that microphone back, but her question was, as it pertains to VA loans, how do we overcome that? Because VA requires for there to be a financing contingency. That's what Aurelia's question was. And it is subject to the contract. So if that highest bid is acceptable to the seller, then the buyer's agent will submit that full offer to the seller. And that offer is going to include all of the details and terms that that buyer is requesting, because on the platform, all you saw was their purchase price, right? When you get that contract, that's when you're going to see everything else that they're requesting of the seller. And just like in any other case, you make sure that the seller is in agreement with, or you negotiate those terms from there, because what they've agreed to on the purchase or on the platform is the purchase price and the MyHousePorter terms and conditions.
So you saying that the contract-
Hold on one second. I see Damika, she had her hand up. Damika?
I think you kind of just answered it. I was gonna ask, what if you get to, like, the seller accepts the highest and best bid, and then it gets to the point where they get to the contract and the buyer's asking for like more than what the seller really expected. Does the house go back in the bidding wars, or does it just what happens in that process?
Is based on the seller's approval. So with any contract of sale, it's a meeting of the minds between the buyer and the seller. So if the buyer asks for something embedded in that offer that wasn't outlined in the MyHousePorter terms, if the seller says yes, then it's fine. If the seller counters it, whatever the seller counters with, that's what you communicate with. If the seller, just does a strike through or whatever the case is, you communicate that like you would in any negotiation back and forth. It's the exact same process.
But I mean, but then it still goes to ask the question, I think, if they just say, okay, no, we're not doing this, then does it go back in?
So that's a very good question. So Rhonda asked, if the seller and buyer can't come to terms with what the buyer has put in that offer, does the property go back on MyHousePorter? And it actually, the next highest bidder is up. So it's kind of like you already have a backup in place. So you reach out, because they actually only have 24 hours to get that contract ratified. So from the time they win the highest bid, it's a 24-hour turnaround. They got to get that contract submitted. It has to be ratified, right? And their earnest money deposit needs to be submitted. So if they don't agree within that time, then it's going to go to the next highest bidder for, negotiations at that point. Great question. Yep, great question.
So,
Yep.
so that would mean, so you had,
Come on.
you had a bidder,
Mhm.
a buyer, and that one buyer is cash money deal,
Mhm.
the other person is going to finance.
Mhm.
The cash money deal is going to be it's going to be quicker and a quicker deal. So how long do they have to, if they're doing financing, to get this done? Because we got cash money deals that can do it this way, but the buyer may like something about this other deal. So how long do they have?
Subject to terms and agreements between the buyer and the seller. So everything is going to be based on the contract. So Kermon is asking, how long does a buyer who is receiving financing have to actually close the deal? And that is, it's the exact same process. And as in any other offer and acceptance, is based on what the buyer has put in there. If the buyer says they need 21 days, if they say they need 30 days, if they say they need 35 or 45 days, it's subject to seller's approval. So the seller will receive that offer. You know, they already know what the high bid is. They know what the terms and conditions of My House Porter, but all of those other factors are being elaborated in the actual contract itself. So the seller will consider that offer with the settlement date and determine whether or not that works for them. So they may want to, they'll accept it, they'll counter it, or they'll reject it.
So my house for ain't going nobody. You gotta come. You
Yeah,
gotta come.
yeah,
You ready to
yeah,
go?
yeah,
You get time for that.
Darlene said, My House Porter is not for people who want to waste time. You got to be ready. There you go. You got to be ready to do a transaction.
Yeah. No, because it's
That's
not-
right.
You gotta, you know, you gotta have some thick skin.
Yeah.
Ready.
That's right. It's for serious people. And that's who we want as clients. You want to weed out people that are just going to be time wasters. Angela?
The buyer terms,
Yes.
is that something that's signed off on? Is it, I read it, and if I move forward and put on a bid, I'm saying I understand it? Is it the buyer's responsibility, or is their buyer agent registering them part of their responsibility? Whose
That is an
responsibility is it?
excellent. So that is an excellent question, and I'm glad you asked. So you didn't allow me to forget it. It is 8:32, and I'm going to go ahead and close down after this question. Angela asked about the terms. Does the buyer sign off on it, or whose responsibility is it to convey that information to the buyer? I'm so glad you asked. So this disclosure that's in your brokerment library under working with seller, it's going to say My House Porter terms and conditions. This is a part of your disclosures that goes on Bright MLS. At the bottom of this or throughout this, you're going to see all the terms and conditions that are associated with that property, and the buyer and the seller both sign off on this. So the buyer signs that they are being bound by the terms and the conditions of this auction platform. So everything is outlined for the buyer. There's no questions, there's no confusion, or they may have questions for their agent, but there's no confusion. Everything is in black and white. So just like you upload your property disclosures and you upload, you know, instructions for submitting the offer, you absolutely upload these terms and conditions. And then as it pertains to the platform itself, let me, if you go to one of them and show you guys where they're actually embedded in the property, and I'll just choose one there. Okay, so here is an actual listing on My House Porter. And as you can see, the terms are already embedded into the website. So when you create a listing on the website, the terms are one of the pre-filled sections that we've already set. So each one of the properties that goes on the platform, your terms are outlined there. So they're going to see it twice. They're going to see it on the platform itself, and they're going to see it in the disclosures that they have to sign off on. Okay. Any other questions? Because it's time to shut down for the night. Good, 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 good. Come on, Angela.
And I don't know if you answered this already.
Mhm.
Can a buyer who needs closing assistance,
Mhm.
is this the platform for that?
So if they want to ask for closing costs, they can, but they're going to put it in their offer, right? So they would be asking for it. So they already have a 3.5% buyer premium. So that's going to be factored. And if they need 3%, then they're going to be having a buyer premium of 6.5%. That is simply going to be added to their high bid price, and that will be their new purchase price, right? So this is not necessarily, you know, the platform for a buyer who doesn't want to add their closing costs to the purchase price, right? That's a strategy that we've been using for a very long time. If your buyer needs something, add it onto the price, and then they can get it back from the seller. So there's no difference in this. No, no.
This is what I'm saying, is for the approval for the buyer. And
So
there are certain programs, and I'm asking,
Mhm,
when you have certain programs that they put you under,
mhm.
they say, oh, no, you can't. You know, you have to. No, but what this is that basically,
Hold on, I want them to hear y'all. So
this is not even about a program. This is about taking that 3% of whatever and spending that on the sales price. So it's not a program, it's actually just a number.
I'll reiterate it. Yep.
Question I'm asking is that when you're under a program, there's certain limits, right, but they're not, but this won't be under a program. Yeah, this is not like the first time around. But
Hold on, people need to hear your conversation.
Oh,
Off the mic.
but
Don't
really,
press
this
the
was
button.
like what we
Don't
talked
press it.
about. This is like what we talked about earlier. This is a part why when first-time home buyers, the interest rate is high because they're putting closing costs in the loan. So it's the same concept, but just different. It has nothing to do with a first-time home buyer's loan.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And did you have something too?
In addition to, I just wanted to know what, in order to be prepared to move forward with this platform confidently, I understand that if you all are going to be listing agents for these properties, I could very well be a buyer agent. So I'm asking these, so I'm prepared to submit a strong offer.
Right.
So, that was one of my questions as far as, can a buyer who needs closing help, what does that look like for my buyer who needs closing help? If I have to, again, if the qualifying financing is 800,000 and I have to factor in, obviously their bid can't be 800,000. I have to include 3.5% buyer premium, as well as consider the help that they may need.
Right.
And that is a great question. And that's the exact same process that we use when we're working with buyers in any regard. When you are working with a buyer in the consultation and throughout that process, you're doing a pricing strategy. You're doing an offer strategy. You know what that buyer needs. You've had a conversation with them and the lender. You know how much they have saved, how much they're able to, bring to settlement. And forgive me, because we're going over. I'm 7 minutes past time. I want to let y'all go. So I'll wrap it up with saying it's the same process. You're going to talk to them about purchase prices based on what their financial need is and your strategy for offers. And if the property is within their reach based on that, then you make an offer. If it's outside of their reach, then it's outside of their reach.
So this is
Okay.
actually something you can do just as a strategy, even normal.
This is something that we do on a daily basis with your strategy. You make sure that your offer fits within their pre-approval amount. And I would love to continue because it's a whole lot of more exciting information, but it's 8:38 and I want to let you guys go for the evening. So I'm going to go ahead and end right here for the evening so we can wrap up in the office, guys. Same time next Thursday, you guys are going to have a treat. So next Thursday you have, I want to say it's Glenn. So Glenn Russell Donaldson, he's going to be doing training on next Thursday. So you guys tune in. So next Thursday is my birthday. So I will be away very quickly, but you guys are still going to have training. Okay. So all the information will come out to you between now and then. But for the rest of the evening, have a great evening.